Raven's Peak was a place that rarely appeared on maps. Tucked deep into the Colorado Rockies, it was more of a rumor than a destination. A scattering of wooden cabins, a gas station that closed before sundown, and a single diner where the locals gathered, whispering stories in voices that always seemed a little too low. Beyond the town, a jagged wall of rock rose high above the valley, its peak crowned by shadows that never seemed to lift, even in daylight. But at night, the mountain wasn't just a silhouette. It came alive. Small pinpricks of light, like lanterns swaying in invisible hands, appeared along the cliffsides. Sometimes just one or two, faint and flickering. Other times, dozens, moving in slow, deliberate patterns, as if guiding someone along a hidden trail. From below, they looked almost beautiful. Almost. To the townsfolk, they were anything but. The story had been told for generations, passed down like a warning. A century ago, during the height of the mining boom, a group of men vanished while searching for silver veins in the mountain. The storm that night had been merciless, the snow so thick that even the lantern flames were swallowed whole. Search parties combed the cliffs for weeks, but nothing was ever found. No bodies, no tools, no trace. They said the men froze to death, their souls trapped in the endless dark of the blizzard. But others swore the miners never stopped walking. It was this legend that drew outsiders, tourists, paranormal enthusiasts, college kids with cameras hoping to catch something unexplainable. Most returned with nothing but blurry photographs and shivers they laughed off. But every few years, someone didn't. That fall, the town was buzzing with uneasy whispers again. A pair of hikers had gone missing near Raven's Peak. They had checked into the motel, left their car in the gravel lot, and never came back. Rangers searched for days, but found only boot prints in the snow. Prints that stopped abruptly at the cliff's edge, as though the hikers had stepped into thin air. The sheriff posted warnings. Locals shook their heads, and yet the lights returned, brighter than ever. One evening, as the sun sank behind the peaks and the valley dimmed into blue shadows, the diner door creaked open. A stranger walked in. A young woman with a heavy backpack, dust on her boots, and eyes that carried a restless determination. She slid into a booth and ordered coffee. The waitress, an older woman named Marlene, noticed the map tucked under the stranger's arm. It was marked with circles, notes scribbled along the edges. "You're not here for the fishing," Marlene said, her voice dry. The woman looked up, half smiling. "I'm here for the lights. I've heard the stories." A hush fell over the room. A few locals turned away, pretending not to listen. Marlene's hand froze on the coffee pot. "You don't want to follow them," the waitress said quietly. "The mountain doesn't give back what it takes." The stranger's smile faded, but only for a moment. "That's what they always say. But every legend starts somewhere. I just want to see for myself." Her name, she said, was Claire. She was a writer, a collector of ghost stories, and Raven's Peak was the next chapter. That night, Claire stood at the edge of town, looking up at the mountain. The air was cold and sharp, the kind of cold that stung your lungs. The sky was clear, the stars glittering like frost. And there, just as the stories promised, lights bloomed along the cliffs. At first she thought they were campfires, but no fire swayed and danced like that. No fire drifted so smoothly as if floating just above the ground. She counted 6, then 8, then more, appearing and fading in strange patterns as though beckoning her closer. She raised her camera, but the lens refused to capture them. All that showed on the screen was darkness. Behind her, the town's street lamps flickered. A dog barked once, then went silent. Claire felt a pull in her chest, subtle but strong, urging her to take a step forward. Just one. But she didn't. Not yet. The mountain was waiting, and it was patient. The next morning, Claire stopped by the sheriff's office. The door creaked as she entered, the small room smelling of coffee and old pine wood. Sheriff Dalton sat behind the desk, a broad-shouldered man with lines carved deep into his face, as though the mountain itself had left its mark on him. "You're the girl asking about the lights," he said flatly, not even waiting for her to introduce herself. "I'm writing about them," Claire replied, pulling her notebook from her bag. "I just want to understand what's really happening up there. Is it some kind of atmospheric phenomenon? Or—" Dalton cut her off with a sharp shake of his head. "It's nothing you need to understand. People get curious. Then people get lost. Happens the same way every time. You see the lights, you follow them, you don't come back. End of story." "But—" The sheriff leaned forward, his voice low and grim. "Don't let that mountain fool you. It'll make you think there's something to find. But the only thing waiting up there is the cold. You think you're chasing answers, but you're just walking into a grave." Claire hesitated. She wanted to push back, to demand proof, but the look in Dalton's eyes made her stop. It wasn't just warning. It was fear. That night, Claire returned to the diner. The locals were quiet as usual, the air thick with unspoken words. But one man finally broke the silence. He was old, his hands rough from years of work, his eyes cloudy with age. His name was Elias, and he had lived in Raven's Peak his entire life. "You want a story?" he said, his voice hoarse. "I'll give you one. My brother followed those lights back in '78. We were just boys. He swore he could hear voices up there, calling his name. I told him not to go, but he wouldn't listen." Claire leaned in, her pen poised above the page. "What happened?" Elias swallowed hard, his jaw trembling slightly. "We found his pack 3 days later, frozen stiff, but no sign of him. No tracks, no body, just his pack sitting in the snow like he'd laid it down gentle, as if he meant to come back for it." The diner fell silent again. No one looked at Claire. No one looked at Elias. They just stared into their coffee cups, waiting for the subject to change. But the story clung to Claire like frost, sinking deep into her mind. Claire couldn't resist any longer. 2 nights later, with her backpack strapped tight and her flashlight cutting through the dark, she set off toward the base of the mountain. The forest closed around her quickly, the trees tall and skeletal against the sky. Each crunch of snow beneath her boots echoed like a heartbeat. The trail was faint, half buried beneath drifts, but she pressed on, her breath clouding in the freezing air. Then, ahead, the lights appeared. They glimmered just beyond the tree line, swaying like lanterns carried by unseen hands. 1 light, then 2, then 3, each one leading her deeper into the woods. Claire felt her pulse quicken. The pull in her chest was stronger now, a subtle gravity urging her forward. She tried to mark the trees with ribbons, tying bright strips of fabric along the branches to track her way back. But with every turn, with every step, the forest seemed to shift. When she glanced behind her, the ribbons were gone. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time felt wrong up there. The lights danced just ahead, always close, never close enough. Claire's flashlight began to dim, and the cold bit harder at her skin. She decided to turn back. She retraced her steps, or thought she did. But after a long, weary walk, She stumbled into a small clearing, the same clearing she'd passed earlier. The same crooked pine leaning against the rocks. The same half-buried stump. Her chest tightened. She turned again, choosing a different direction. 10 minutes later, she was back in the same clearing. The mountain was folding in on itself. Her hands shook as she scribbled notes in her journal. The trail doesn't stay the same. It changes when you're not looking. It's alive. A laugh slipped from her lips, thin and nervous. She wasn't sure if she meant to laugh or if the mountain had pulled it out of her. The lights flickered closer now, surrounding her. She could almost make out figures in the glow, shapes moving within the haze, slow and unsteady, like men stumbling through a storm. Then came the sound. At first it was the wind, moaning through the trees. But then it sharpened, twisting into something that made Claire's blood run cold. Voices. Low, broken voices. They called her name. Not once, not twice. Over and over, from every direction, overlapping, echoing in tones that cracked with frost. Claire. Her flashlight sputtered out. Darkness swallowed her whole. The only light left was theirs. The forest was a tomb of silence. Claire stood trembling, her breath forming white plumes in the frozen air, her flashlight dead in her hand. The only illumination came from the drifting orbs, their glow pale and unearthly. They moved slowly, circling her. No matter which way she turned, the lights adjusted, staying just beyond reach. She forced herself to step back, her boots crunching in the snow. Her instincts screamed at her to run, but she didn't know which way was away anymore. Every tree looked the same. Every shadow stretched too far. Finally, she pulled a flare from her pack and struck it alive. The red flame hissed, painting the snow in violent color. For the briefest moment, the lights faltered, dimming as though retreating from the flare's heat. But then the voices came again, louder this time, clearer. Claire, this way. The sound was wrong. Too many voices blending into one, too broken, too hollow. And yet, deep inside, something in her wanted to follow. Hours blurred together. Claire wandered until her legs ached and the flare sputtered out, leaving her in near darkness once more. The cold gnawed at her bones. Just when she thought she couldn't take another step, she saw it, a shape in the trees. A cabin. Its roof sagged beneath the snow, windows dark, chimney collapsed. It looked abandoned, forgotten by time. But smoke, thin, faint, rose from somewhere inside. Her heart pounded as she pushed the door open. The wood groaned, and the smell of soot and decay hit her like a wave. Inside, the air was warmer, but only slightly. A fire smoldered weakly in the hearth, though no one was there to tend it. Claire stepped inside cautiously. On the table sat a set of objects: a cracked lantern, a rusted pickaxe, and an old leather journal, its cover worn and frayed. She picked it up, brushing away the dust. Inside were pages filled with shaky handwriting. We've been walking for days. The snow never ends. The lights keep leading us higher. Some of the men swear they see home in the distance, but when we reach it, there's nothing. Just more cliffs. I fear the mountain has us. Claire froze. These were the words of the lost miners. The last entry chilled her to the core. If anyone finds this, don't follow the lights. They are not guiding us. They are keeping us here. The floor creaked behind her. Claire whipped around, but the cabin was empty. Only the fire smoldered, low and fading. She tried to steady her breath, convincing herself it was just the shifting wood. Then she heard it again. Slow, heavy, footsteps across the floorboards. "Who's there?" she whispered, her voice trembling. No answer. She backed toward the door. clutching the miner's journal like a lifeline. But when she reached for the handle, the footsteps came faster, closer, until they seemed only inches behind her. Claire spun. Nothing. Only the glow of the fire, the rusted lantern, the silence. And yet the snow on the floor, tracked in by her boots, now had more prints. Large, boot-shaped impressions leading from the door to the hearth, as if someone else had entered with her. Panic drove her out of the cabin. She stumbled back into the woods, clutching the journal to her chest. The lights had multiplied now. Dozens of them scattered through the trees, weaving in and out like fireflies. But they weren't fireflies. Each light seemed to contain a shadowed figure, dim and blurred, as though a man stood behind fogged glass. Their heads hung low, movements stiff and unnatural. Yet they walked with purpose, always circling, always keeping her in their midst. Claire tried to run downhill, desperate to escape, but every trail curved back, every slope turned her around. The more she ran, the more the terrain betrayed her. Rocks and trees repeated like echoes. Once, gasping for breath, she stumbled into a clearing. Relief surged through her until she realized it was the same clearing she'd already crossed hours ago. The crooked pine, the half-buried stump. She dropped to her knees, clutching her head, her breath ragged. The mountain was playing with her, and it was winning. The wind rose suddenly, howling through the trees. Snow whipped around her, stinging her skin. Claire staggered forward, shielding her eyes, until she saw them. Figures standing in the storm, dozens of them. At first, she thought they were men, frozen in the snow. But as she stepped closer, she saw their faces, or what was left of them. Hollow eyes, skin gray and stretched, lips cracked and split. They were frozen mid-step, lanterns clutched in their hands. Their bodies locked in eternal motion. The miners, Claire's breath caught in her throat. Their heads turned in unison, impossibly slow, their hollow eyes fixing on her. The lights flickered brighter, surrounding her, pressing closer. And then, they moved. Their frozen limbs cracked as they lurched forward, breaking free from the snow with jerking, unnatural movements. Their lanterns swayed, glowing like dying stars. Claire stumbled back, terror gripping her throat. She wanted to scream, but no sound came. The miners were no longer lost. They had found her. The storm swallowed the forest whole. Snow whirled in violent spirals, blotting out the stars and moonlight. Claire staggered, blinded. But the lights burned through the haze, circling, closing in. The miners moved with slow, jerking steps, but the mountain twisted the space between them. No matter how far she ran, they stayed near. Every glance over her shoulder revealed more of them, their lanterns swaying, their mouths half open, as though whispering words she could not hear. Her lungs burned, her legs numb, yet she pressed on, clutching the journal like it was the only thing tethering her to reality. She broke through the trees, stumbling onto a narrow ridge. The wind screamed across the cliffside, carrying flakes of ice that cut at her skin. Below her stretched the valley, the faint lights of Raven's Peak town shimmering in the distance. So close, but between her and freedom, the lights gathered, a wall of pale orbs, drifting, waiting. Claire's heart thundered. She had two choices: go back into the woods and face the miners closing in behind her, or step toward the lights barring her path. She thought of Elias's story, of his brother's pack left behind in the snow, of the warning scrawled in the miner's journal. Don't follow the lights. They are not guiding us. They are keeping us here. Her grip tightened on the journal. But then she heard it, the voices again, louder now, but clearer than before. And among the broken whispers, one stood out, Claire. Her blood froze. That voice was familiar. It was her brother's. She hadn't heard his voice in years, not since the accident. Not since the night the blizzard took his life on another mountain far from here. He had been lost in the storm, just like these miners, never found. And now his voice was calling from the lights. She took a step forward, then another, tears freezing on her cheeks. She could almost see him now, a figure beyond the glow, reaching out a hand. Come home, Claire. Her boots slipped on the icy ridge. She swayed. Inches from the drop, the valley yawning below. Then, through the howl of the wind, she heard another sound, the sheriff's voice echoing in her mind. You see the lights. You follow them. You don't come back. Her body trembled. Was this real, or was the mountain wearing her brother's voice like a mask? She opened the journal, flipping through the frozen pages with numb fingers, searching for something, anything. And there it was, scrawled in desperate handwriting. They use the ones we've lost. They sound like them. They look like them. Don't listen. Claire's heart broke. Her brother's voice whispered again, softer now, almost pleading. But she snapped the book shut and screamed into the storm. You're not him! The lights flickered violently. The figure ahead wavered, its hand dissolving into mist. Behind her, the miners shrieked in a soundless cry, lanterns swinging wildly. The mountain groaned as if in anger, the very ground trembling beneath her feet. Claire took her chance. She bolted down the ridge, slipping and sliding, the journal clutched against her chest. The light surged after her, but something had broken. The illusion cracked. The path ahead didn't fold back on itself this time. Through the snow, she saw the valley lights again, real and steady. Her boots struck rock, then dirt, then the familiar outline of the town's outskirts. She stumbled into the road, collapsing onto her knees, gasping for air. The lights of the mountain burned faintly behind her, still drifting along the cliffs, but they did not follow past the tree line. It was as if the town itself marked a boundary they could not cross. Marlene from the diner found her hours later, frostbitten and shaking, clutching the miner's journal in her frozen hands. In the days that followed, Claire tried to tell her story. Some believed her. Others called her delirious from the cold. Sheriff Dalton didn't ask questions. He just shook his head and muttered, "You're lucky the mountain let you go." Claire stayed long enough to recover, but the journal never left her side. She pored over its pages, each word a piece of the miner's torment, each warning a reminder of how close she had come to joining them. On her last night in Raven's Peak, she sat by the motel window, staring at the cliffs. And once again, the lights appeared. Dozens of them, glowing softly in the dark. They swayed in their slow, endless dance, just as they always had. Claire thought of leaving the journal with the sheriff, or hiding it in the library archives. But in the end, she tucked it into her pack, because the lights were not finished with her. Deep down, she felt it. The mountain wasn't done. It had let her go, but only just. The voices had found her weakness once, and they would find it again. As she zipped her bag shut, the wind rattled the window. For a moment, she swore she heard a whisper slip through the glass. Her brother's voice. "See you soon, Claire." The lights on Raven's Peak flared brighter, as if answering. And then, one by one, they vanished into the night.